welcome to the stage Trystan Reese.
I'm sitting on my couch in my living room next to my partner, Biff, and there is a gigantic microphone in our face. We're being interviewed for our favorite parenting podcast, The Longest Shortest Time. And we're being interviewed because it's a parenting podcast and we're gonna have a baby, which I know is not a big deal. It's how we all got here. But in our case, it is a big deal because at the time of the interview, I was pregnant. This is not a miracle of modern medicine, I'm just transgender. And for me, that means that I was born female. I had a girlhood. At an early age, I was exposed to theater. I know it's shocking. And that was my first interaction with gay people. And I was like, yep. And so the joke became that I was a gay man trapped in a woman's body. And as I got older, the literal feeling of being trapped in the wrong body got more and more pervasive and painful until around age 20, I met a transgender man and I realized it was not a joke at all. I actually was a gay man trapped in a woman's body. And with that realization, of course, came the second realization that I could fix this problem and live a happy life. So I took testosterone and that made me look like I do today, like every other gay dude in Portland. Thank you. And so that's one thing you should know about me, and the thing you should know about my partner, Biff, is that he changed my life. We met when I was living in Los Angeles. I was living my childhood dream of being a professional pissed-off queer. Yeah, I was an actual gay rights activist, and at the time I was working on marriage equality, and I was one of those people that goes door to door and finds homophobic people and tries to change their mind. It is as easy as it sounds. Yeah. There's usually three problems that people have with the gays when you talk to them. Number one, it's against their religion. Number two, it's against tradition. And number three, gay sex is icky. And it turns out that I was really good at having these conversations with these people. I was really good at being patient and open and pleasant and curious. And when they said really hateful things to me that didn't feel hateful to them, I could kind of just roll with it. And so I did that, and I was good at it, but it was really hard internally, because it's hard to hear hateful things all day, every day as part of your job. And the second reason that it was hard to do that job is because I was pretty sure that I was never gonna get married. Not because I didn't want to, I did, but I didn't know any trans people who were married. I didn't even know any trans people who had relationships that weren't like fighting all the time on Facebook for everyone to see. You know what I mean? And that was when Grindr first started. And what I was hearing mostly from dudes on Grindr was kind of the same stuff that I was hearing from voters at the door, was that I was gross. And so I didn't think that love was really in the cards for me or that I would ever find it. And then I met Biff. First of all, he is the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my whole life. So when I met him, I was just like, holy shit. And there are two kinds of gay dudes, right? There are gay dudes who like dick, and then there are gay dudes who like men. And he was that second kind. He didn't care what I had going on. I mean, he cared, but in a good way. You know what I mean? And the way that I showed up in his mind was that I was perfect. And it was my first time feeling perfect. And all of those voices, those voters' voices, those dudes on Grindr, they all went away. And for the first time in my life, I felt perfect. And we dated, and then we fell in love, and then we adopted his niece and nephew because they needed a place to live, and we had a place. And we did get married. Thank you. And then 4 years after we got married, I started to have dreams about having his baby. Not in the way that people are like, I want to have your baby. I mean, yes, that, but also literally have his baby. And I have a uterus and eggs, and he has sperm. You do the math, you know what I mean? And I know hundreds of transgender men like me who have beards and everything who have successfully given birth to happy, beautiful kids. So I totally knew it was possible. And I went to the doctor and I was like, can I do this? They checked me out and I was explained that testosterone is a little bit like hormonal birth control. It stops ovulation, you stop taking it, and then everything kind of kicks back into gear and you can conceive and carry a child just like anyone else. And I started to be really excited about having a baby and having his baby. And I also started to really be excited about what it would mean to be a pregnant man. Because for me, a lot of what I hear basically is, I will accept you as a man as long as I never have to think about the fact that you are transgender. Which for me, I'm like, is that acceptance or is that coercion? You know what I mean? And so for me, I was like, what if I didn't let people allow me to let them forget that I'm transgender? What if I embraced and accepted the fact that I am a dude, I have a uterus, and I can make a fucking baby, and none of you guys can do that? And no offense, dudes, but like, I don't want to be like you. So I stopped taking testosterone, and I got pregnant. And it was awesome. The end was hard. But like the beginning parts was awesome. And I felt like we were kind of like in the footsteps of that sacred queer tradition of taking broken shards of glass and putting them together to make a beautiful mosaic. Like we had taken all these disparate things and we had created a family out of love. And my teenage self like really needed to tell this story publicly, which is how I ended up on that couch with the big microphone in my face, because I wanted to tell the story. And the podcast did a really good job. They cut out all the parts where I sounded stupid. And they put it together really nicely, and I thought, you know, maybe a few hundred people will hear this story and it'll impact them. And the night that the podcast came out, I got an email from Cosmo magazine. For me, I'm like, that's the big time. You know what I mean? And they were like, can we write a story electronically? And I was like, yes, maybe a few thousand people will hear our story, and it'll have even more of an impact. So I was super proud of myself, and I like went to bed that night, whoop, Cosmo magazine. While I was asleep, it was nighttime here on the other side of the earth. It was daytime, and the tabloids were hard at work. So I woke up the next morning and pulled up Facebook, and there is our story on the Daily Mail, which is a tabloid with about 1.5 million readers every day. And there was our story, and there was my picture. And by the time I opened up Facebook, that article had been shared 26,000 times. There were 56,000 comments. I am not a morning person, so I wasn't really thinking clearly. So I scrolled down and I looked at the comments. Where were you guys that morning? Really could have used you. They were not good, as you may imagine. A lot of people said that I was not a pregnant man. I'm just a really ugly, hairy woman. A lot of people said I looked like a circus freak, and I'm like, cool, some of my best friends are circus freaks, you know? And then there was a good chunk of people who said that they hoped that I gave birth to a dead baby, because that baby would be better off than a baby who had to be born to someone like me. And it was like, it all came back. All of those voters and all those dudes on Grindr, and now this whole new group of voices, strangers on the internet, telling me how disgusting I am. And I was 6 months pregnant when I read that comment. And we had to make a choice, Biff and I. We had to decide if we were going to step back and let the tabloids have their way with us, or if we would try to tell our story, keep telling our story, but responsibly. And that's what we did. We partnered with CNN and People Magazine and Washington Post to try and get out in front of it and tell the story the way that we wanted it to be told about love and possibility. And it worked. We had the incredible privilege of being invited into millions of homes all over America on the nightly news actual queer people with piercings and tattoos, one of whom was pregnant. And we heard from people all over the Midwest, the South, religious people saying I was the first trans person they ever met, and that they never knew that trans people could be parents. We heard from trans youth who were like, thank you for telling me that finally I can tell my mom that she could be a grandmother one day, that I don't have to give up anything if I'm trans. Nothing. And that was really exciting to hear. But in the back of my head, I knew why we had been invited in and other people hadn't. And it's because we are really safe. We look like every other gay couple in Portland, except I was pregnant. We were like sterile and positive and calm, just like I'd been at the door with those voters, right? I could never get angry at the incredibly invasive things that they said. And one time, when we were about to go live for our very first television interview, Biff went to put his hand on my knee, and I batted it away. And I looked at him, and he was so hurt. And we did the interview, and then the lights came down, and he said, "What was that?" And I had to explain to him what I had learned with those voters, that homophobia and transphobia is a really intense and complicated system of tripwires, and you have to basically be a ninja to get around them, to get to the root, to dismantle it. And I knew if people saw us holding hands, kissing, hugging, touching, that for some people who didn't know what to think about gay people, that was gonna be too much, and we were gonna lose them. It would feel good to me to kiss this man that I love, but that would be about my ego, not about actually making it easier for the next more controversial, more interesting, more compelling trans person that comes along behind us, and that's what we wanted to do. The other thing we had to do was answer really fucked up questions. Really fucked up questions. People are really obsessed with trans bodies. And I'm like, thank you for the interest, but no thank you. So people really wanted to know if I was gonna breastfeed. I got this question all the time. Are you gonna breastfeed? Can you breastfeed? Do you know that if you don't breastfeed, your baby's gonna end up sickly? Not science, by the way, at all. People want to know what kind of birth I was planning to have, a C-section or a natural birth. I'm sorry, is any birth unnatural? It was completely bizarre. But then my favorite / least favorite question was, how was the baby conceived? You're asking about my sex life on NBC. What am I supposed to say? Do you know what I mean? And the real reason that I couldn't actually answer that question is because the real story is not safe for work. The truth is, while I was ovulating, Biff was working night shifts, so one night I snuck into his work after midnight, and we fucked in the bathroom at his work. When you've been with someone for 8 years, that shit doesn't happen that much. It was amazing, and not something I can tell Anderson Cooper. Do you know what I mean? So I answered all those questions. I maintained that perfect model trans person demeanor, even though it killed me, all the way up until the day it was time to actually give birth to this giant fucking baby that had taken over my body. And the hospital was super nice, and Biff was amazing, and my dad was there, and Biff's mom was there. And if you had asked me before I gave birth, is childbirth a miracle? I would have been no, it's science. Then I had a baby. It's a fucking miracle. There wasn't a person there, and now there's a person. You're like a god. It was amazing. It was amazing. And he was just more than I could have ever imagined. And we named him Leo. And after he was born, and I was holding his little body, our friend came and took a little video of us being like, haha, you said 2 men can't make a baby? Watch us. Whatever. And then when she left, I knew in my heart that I was done. with this whole media stuff, that it was my job now to be a really good parent to this brand new person and to my amazing older kids and a way better partner to Biff than I'd been when I was pregnant. And I just told Biff, I'm done. I can't do Facebook or Instagram or comments or none of it. Done. And he took a deep breath and he held my hand and he said, sweetheart, I love you so much, but no. No. Because if we stop now, then the clickbait, the pregnant man, that's the story. Not our family. Not what comes afterwards. Not this vision that we have for a better world where anybody can get pregnant and feel loved and supported, where anybody can hold hands and kiss on television and not have people turn it off or tell them how fucking disgusting they are. That's the world we're working for, and if we stop now, we're not really helping to get there. And that's why I'm here on this stage today, is because I trust Biff. And I'm telling my story as much as I can for as long as I can, in the hopes that the love that I start to feel from all of you and from this incredible family that we have built from shards of glass can drown out all of that hate. Because as it turns out, nothing is better at driving out hate than love. Thank you.